This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop on research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared by students, faculty, alumni, and other members of the USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Hey guys, I'm your other co-host. My name is Maya. I'm a current senior studying Industrial and Systems Engineering here at USC.
So we have another episode here, and to bring that other episode, we have a new guest to the podcast. I think this is your first time on the podcast. Is that correct, Sydney?
Second.
I think this is my second because last year I did it.
Yeah, I can't keep track anymore. Sydney, welcome back to the podcast. Tell a little bit about yourself to all of our folks out here listening.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Sydney. I'm a senior studying chemical engineering, and I'm originally from San Francisco.
Very cool. And Sydney, tell us a little bit about your episode that you have for us today.
Yeah, so we talked about entrepreneurship and startups, and essentially 3 Viterbi students talked about their experience when trying to get into the startup industry. They talked about how they got into it, why they like the industry, what clubs they were involved in at USC, and they also shared their own projects that they worked on.
It's like my personal favorite topic.
Very cool. Why is this your personal favorite?
I'm involved.
Involvement?
Yeah, I'm involved in an entrepreneurship club right now, Lava Lab, and I know Sydney spoke to some people involved with that. And just in general, I think startups are really cool, and students at USC are doing something very cool. It's a unique community that I don't know a lot of my other friends at other schools. I don't know if they experience the same thing. So I think it's a very USC cool experience.
I also think it's good to talk about because so many students ask us about entrepreneurship and they think that they have to go down an academic route. They have to study entrepreneurship. They have to have a major, or they have to take classes in it. And I'm assuming, before we get into this, that you talk about so many different ways in which students do entrepreneurship that have nothing to do with classes, correct?
Yeah, you can do it through clubs. I was also in Lava Lab like Maya. And you don't need to be a business major to get into the startup industry.
Perfect. What a great way to
roles.
Absolutely. What a great way to kick it off. Let's hand it right back over to you, Sydney, to take it from here, and we will catch up with all of you on the other side of this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Viterbi Student Podcast episode. My name is Sydney Fiorentino, and today I will be hosting a roundtable related to startup culture and entrepreneurship opportunities within Viterbi. To start off with a bit of background about myself, I'm a senior studying chemical engineering and originally from San Francisco. And during my freshman year, I was a part of a club called Lava Lab, which we will talk about later on in this episode. Today, I'm here with other members of that club as well as students within Viterbi. And would you guys like to introduce yourself with your name, major, hometown? Nikhil, you can start.
All right, sweet. Yeah, my name is Nikhil, and my hometown was San Mateo, California.
I'll go. I'm Reagan. I'm a senior studying computer science. I am currently the director of industry relations and sponsorship for Lava Lab, and I was a part of Lava Lab as a member in spring 2022.
I'm Yashvi. I'm a senior studying computer science and business with a minor in entrepreneurship. I'm the president of Troy Lab, but I was in Lava Lab spring 2020, so the one pre-COVID.
Awesome.
India.
Awesome. So if you guys could just tell me, how did you guys get into entrepreneurship to begin with?
So for me, it was honestly a very random journey. In high school, for most of high school, I wanted to do architecture. Essentially, where I grew up in the Bay Area, homelessness is a big problem. And then one day I met someone who was in affordable housing art, and I realized that the impact that they had was super impact that was meaningful to me. If I went into policy, and I cannot do that. So at the same time, I started taking more CS classes, and I thought that was cool. And then when I came to USC in my freshman year, I just randomly kind of got set down this path where I ended up really liking startups. Yeah.
I'll go next. I think I always knew I wanted to be a computer science major, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. It was always kind of the concept of once I get the degree, I'll figure it out. But then I think I a freshman sophomore year, I was like, maybe that's not the best approach for a lifelong career. So I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And then I came, like when USC came back from being over Zoom after COVID, it was fall 2021. And it was like the big NFT boom. And so, yes, embarrassingly, I was a really big part, but it introduced me to this whole new world of like being a founder and like, starting your own like small company. And next semester, I applied to Lava Lab and have just fallen in love with entrepreneurship and, being a founder and that whole aspect of, career journey.
So growing up, actually, I was already, building different things. Then that was more on the product side, but then coming to USC and studying computer science. And actually, again, like, I did Lava Lab my first year and really understood that I could make things with just my laptop. And then ended up taking a gap year during COVID and just worked with so many different startups and just really enjoyed that experience. I was just building things and deploying things and seeing people use stuff that I'd built. And so that's how I got more sold and more solidified into the entrepreneurship space.
Yes. And so I know a lot of you guys mentioned like clubs and entrepreneurship clubs like Lava Lab and Troy Labs. Can you guys expand on like for listeners what those clubs are, what they do?
Yeah, okay. I can go first. So Troy Labs is a startup accelerator. And essentially what we do is we work with startups that, have a product. We help them go from product to launch. So it's working with that one to infinity sort of space. And we work with a lot of student startups. So, all UFC affiliated. So either current students, undergraduate, graduate, PhDs, sometimes alumni as well. And we work with them in an 8 to 10 week span and essentially build a curriculum for them and help them with all their different needs. So this includes branding, marketing, design, finance, raising, just everything that goes into becoming a founder. And so that's what the Troy Labs team really helps with. And supports the USC entrepreneurship system from that perspective. And then we also run a startup exhibition to just, bringing USC and Southern California's top 50 startups to campus and just creating that vibrant community and that one day full of festivities and activities where there's just founders, students, investors, faculty, and just everyone in a shared space. So that's the area that we work in.
Yeah, cool. I could speak a little bit about Lava Lab as well. So we are USC's premier student-run startup incubator. And what that means is essentially we take people who are a little bit new to developing startups, who don't really have as much experience in it, and like teach them how to go from coming up with an idea, figuring out what is a good idea and what makes a good product. And then we work with these groups of 28 students over the course of a semester. And we teach them how to go from ideation to creating a MVP, which is a minimum viable product or a prototype of their product, as well as a pitch deck. So basically, we get them from going to zero to learning the tools and all to kind of build up to their first thing. And then after that, a lot of clubs or a lot of teams will go into Troy Labs or other resources on campus.
And for Lava Lab, is there a way for people to kind of like, do they have kind of like a pitch night or how does that work? Like, how do they show what they've been working?
Yeah, so the semester culminates in a demo night where teams present their pitches as well as the prototypes that they made to a panel of a bunch of USC students as well as a panel of judges and industry experts. And they're able to compete for prize money to continue funding their ideas.
Nice. Did you guys ever win when you guys were in Lava Lab or Troy Labs?
So when I was in Lava Lab, my team won one of the prizes, and then I think a couple of the teams that I mentored over the years were able to win it as well.
I never won.
My team never won in Lava Lab.
So how was your experience working on a team with like other students? Like what role did you play? How did you add to the team? And then how did like Viterbi help prepare you for like creating a startup, leading these clubs and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, unless I'm mistaken, I think we were all developers. And so our role on the team so it's 4 people, especially in Lava Lab, it's 1 product manager, 1 designer, and 2 developers. And so you kind of work with the product manager and the designer to kind of create the minimum viable product. Usually you either make a website, but nowadays people are kind of launching apps. Back in my day, it was way different. I feel like nowadays people have fully fleshed out like MVPs, and they're really impressive, and it's really changed over the years, which is pretty amazing. But so our role as developers is to get the product from more of like a design standpoint all the way into in production, and hopefully it can be launched before demo night. It seems to be the timeline nowadays. And so yeah, you guys can speak more on what our role as developers was.
Yeah, wait, also Sydney, what was the second part of that question as well?
How did Viterbi, like, how would you say Viterbi prepared you to, like, first of all, just kind of be a developer and help run a startup, and then also just now you both are leaders for the club. So like, how do you think Viterbi in general prepared you?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that, I don't know if it's unique to USC, but at least compared to the schools that I was deciding between, that really stood out to me about USC's CS curriculum is it's very applied. Actually, there's a lot of balance to it. So I think there are a lot of schools that will either have a super applied curriculum or a super theoretical curriculum. And I think that like the CS curriculum does thread a good balance between that. And so like I had a lot of like, there were some like classes where I did projects, and also there was enough time outside of class for me to work on my own projects as well. So I think that balance and really helped me like kind of discover more about Lava Lab and get way more involved in the startup community in general. In terms of like managing clubs, like Viterbi does provide some resources. I think that there are a lot of other institutions that are in the business school and stuff like that that do a better job. So I think that Viterbi could do a little bit more to support the entrepreneurship community at USC in less superficial ways.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I also agree. I think job science took away sense on business with a minor in entrepreneurship. And so a lot of my classes are on the business side as well. And so typically the way I have approached some of my classes, I'm going to like takeaways from these different classes, is that I look at the CS classes to get the more technical experience, like Nikhil was saying, getting that project experience and working with a lot of the clubs and becoming a better technical developer. And then relying more on the business classes to get some of the soft skills that go to the entrepreneurial space as well. So I think the two balance really well. But I know now that Viterbi is starting a lot more, offering a lot more ITP classes as well that are more experiential and more towards, like more geared towards startup building as well.
Nice. Oh yeah, no, go ahead and add.
I was going to say, but I feel like what I've seen from being on the leadership side of Lava Lab now is just how amazing the CS curriculum does prepare our CS students and how valuable they are to the industry. Because like Nikhil was saying, I think there's other CS curriculums out there that are a little heavy on either the applied or the theoretical side, but because of the balance that Viterbi gives the CS students, they really kind of breed the best computer science majors that we have out there. And we have a lot of interest from industry in specifically our technical parts of Lava Lab because of the skills that they come into USC, not only from their passion external projects, but also from the skills that the CS curriculum gives them.
So, like a lot of business majors are involved in the startup industry, right? So for me, when I was a freshman, and that's when I first joined Lava Lab, I got really intimidated by like all the other people. So what advice would you give freshmen or people who are interested in pursuing their own business or who aren't familiar with like how the process of creating a startup works?
Yeah, I think that especially like at USC, the startup community can be very male dominated and white person dominated and business person dominated, which obviously is really hard for someone who maybe does not see themselves with that same background to kind of jump in there. And I think like the best resources, Lava Labs isn't the only one. There's clubs like Troy Labs and SEP. And I think that those provide a good stepping stone where we all like, I think have more diversity that's more representative of the USC student body rather than just like the elite startup scene in parentheses. And I think that, or sorry, in quotes. And I think that joining that is a really good way to kind of like get your feet wet, get your first like footsteps into this like side, because it is like doing startups is hard. It's a lot of work. A lot of times it doesn't pay off. And so I think like if you do start that in a safe space and a nurturing environment, it really helps you take off.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just wondering, what is SCP or what you mentioned?
Oh yeah, Sigma Eta Pi is another kind of startup incubator on campus. They do stuff similar to Lava Lab, but they focus a little bit more on the community building aspect, while like Lava Lab focuses a little bit more on the product aspect. I'm obviously biased. I think Lava Lab is better, but it's really kind of what you want to get out of your experience. If you want to get a better network, then definitely go to SCP, and they have a lot more networking events and stuff like that. But I think that we really teach people how to do product really well.
USC is an amazing entrepreneurship community. Whenever I send my emails out to people in industry, I always say it's the West Coast's finest entrepreneurial community. And I think it can be a little daunting at the beginning, just like Nikhil said, especially because, it's dominated by different people than, what you think it is. But at the same time, I feel like, just like Nikhil said, starting in a safe space such as Lava Lab, I think, especially because we do focus so much on the product, and they are so industry ready, and they're so tangible, and they're really impressive products that I really hope anyone who's listening to this, who's not at USC, goes on the Lava Lab Instagram and sees what the products that we're creating is. And same thing with Troy Labs. I think it's astounding to see the level of amazing products that come out of these accelerators and incubators here at a college level. Like I'll go to conferences and I'll listen to, founders who are like 27, 28, what their idea is, or, how they want to change the world. And I'm like, we would have shot that down in a 3-second pitch at Lava Lab, but you're a 28-year-old with funding. And so it's just funny to see how it can change your life in a way.
Yeah. And just to add on, I definitely agree with what Nick and Reagan said. I think also just looking at clubs as a playground and like a testing ground, because a lot of times classes can feel a lot more pressure where grades you want to do well. But when you're in a club, there's no, like when you're in a club, there's no competition anymore. You're not there to compete with other people. You're all working together. And so it essentially becomes this fun playground where everyone's just trying to learn. And the entire idea that like Lava Lab and Joy Labs and the entire purpose of these clubs is to bring people who wouldn't typically meet in a classroom setting together. And so it's the perfect place to find a new friend who's studying something completely different and who can help you on your founder journey and provide a different perspective. And so just approaching it from that more fun lens can be really helpful and take the pressure off, especially as a freshman.
Yeah, and I think it definitely helps that like people on your team, the people that are also, I guess, like that you work with or mentoring you, they're all around the same age as you. So it's like a little less intimidating, which is nice. Would you guys say that there are other resources that USC provides for entrepreneurship, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in Viterbi?
Yeah, so the biggest one that comes to mind is the Lloyd Greif Center in Marshall. I think they do an amazing job of both supporting student orgs as well as just like supporting individual like students as they're on their startup journey. They have this micro grant program where you can apply with like a pitch, and then they give you like a stipend or something like that. I don't know the exact details, but you guys should definitely check them out if you're interested. I honestly think that they are like the most like they're the biggest like on campus, I guess, like what do you call it? Organization that is supporting the entrepreneurship community. Apart from them, I would say like in terms of USC resources, there isn't that much. Also, Spark is an amazing resource as well. They focus a lot more on fostering community and in entrepreneurship, both in USC and outside. Yeah, I feel like I've been hogging the airspace, so I'll let someone else talk.
No, I think that was good. I think from a Lava Lab standpoint, also, we do love to work with Greif because they're so willing to give us judges or give us sponsorship. And I think that's something that is lacking at USC. I think, there's a lot of demand from the students about startups and entrepreneurship, but at the same time, there's not a lot from a foundational standpoint from the school other than Greif, which is an amazing, addition to the entrepreneurship space. But, I don't think Viterbi provides Lava Lab funding, which, Nikhil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they do.
No, I don't think so. Yashvi, do you have a different experience?
No, Viterbi doesn't sponsor because I think Lava Lab and Troy Labs are more under Greif funding. So a lot of the funding comes from the wide Greif Center for Entrepreneurial Studies, which is under Marshall. So they're a big resource. And then outside of they're a great organizational body, but they also have their own classes. So the BAEP or the Business Entrepreneurship classes are really good resources. And they're all, very project-based. You learn a lot. They're all from people in the industry.
I've heard really good things.
So I think that's also good. Yeah, amazing classes. Some of my favorite classes at USC have been the business entrepreneurship classes.
I agree. They've been really good.
Nice. And I guess my last question for you guys is, what has been the hardest challenge when, I guess, like working on a startup team?
What a question.
So I think, at least for me, and with all the teams that I mentored in Lava Lab, the biggest struggle that I find is finding a good problem, right? That's like the hardest part about, I think, like, especially in the beginning part of the startup, like building a startup when you're trying to figure stuff out. It's important to find a product that has a problem that has product market fit, right? So you're actually solving a problem that people have rather than coming up with a solution that solves a problem that doesn't actually exist. And I think like the first probably half of your semester in Lava Lab is usually like spent like working with these teams to figure out like how to find good problems and how to evaluate like what a good problem is. So yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part. And there's also like team dynamic stuff and learning how to communicate with people that don't have your same skill sets. But I think that's the biggest one.
And I would also say it's the most valuable skill that these entrepreneurship organizations teach you. I feel like over my years kind of in the entrepreneurship space, I've kind of gained an intuition for it. Whereas, so Nikhil was my mentor for my Lava Lab team. I think he would say in the beginning I had the worst product sense in the world, and I kind of agree with him. And so I think being, I'm 21 years old now, about to graduate college, but knowing what's a good idea and how that would change the world in a way, I think is very, very valuable to anyone who wants to be in the entrepreneurship space, because there's so many entrepreneurs, like a want to be an entrepreneur nowadays, that will just kind of create a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. But I think a lot of the Lava Lab and Troy Lab's curriculum is just really verifying that that the solution is backed up by a problem. But in terms of like the hardest thing I found is, sorry, Nikhil, is so our current director of operations, Chris, always talks about this and how finding your co-founders is like getting married to someone. Like it's more than dating. It's more than 2 to 3 year thing. It's a 10-year thing. And I feel like trying to find the people who have the same goals and the complementary skills to you is very difficult. But once again, being in such a great entrepreneurship space here at USC and in Lava Lab, there's co-founders all around you. And so I think that's our saying, is find your co-founder.
Yeah. I also want to jump in and say Reagan has great product sense, and she was BSing.
Maybe it's better now, but I don't know, but back in the day.
Lava Lab really made it 10x better. It's all I'm doing.
I think finding co-founders is very difficult. Also, just getting feedback and constantly pivoting during the start of the journey, because when you pick up an idea and you start executing, there's going to be so many hurdles and so many things that keep changing along the way, and constantly adapting to it and taking feedback with stride and not being super fixated on like the first idea that, like the startup was born with. But especially things like, it's like your startup's like your baby and you don't want to change it. You don't want to let it, just change it in a completely different direction. But sometimes you have to. And I think that's very difficult. Yeah, for sure. And actually, I do have one more question. Sorry about that. But what was your idea when you guys were part of the startup community, when you were in the clubs?
When I was in Lava Lab, my startup idea was, it honestly was not the best. The first one that I went with was, our product was called Telescope. Essentially, like a huge problem for actors and actresses are they need to pay talent agents like thousands of dollars a month in order to get into auditions and stuff like that. And so we created like a peer-to-peer, like crowdsourced talent sourcing platform where actors and actresses could upload different skits and stuff to show off the skills that they'd been working on and get upvoted by other actors and actresses. And then at the end of every week or every day, the top 5 most upvoted profiles get sent off to talent agencies. So there was it was kind of like a win-win situation for both. After that, I kind of went off and worked a little bit on some blockchain stuff. I worked on this idea to help with, to create infrastructure for DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations, which are basically entities on the blockchain. And then after that, it just bounced around a lot.
Mine was so at the time when we were trying to find a problem to solve, we were thinking about generational wealth and how it kind of felt impossible I was probably youngest on my team. There was a few seniors on my team. They said they feel like they're never going to be able to own real estate and that they're always going to need to rent. And it just seems impossible to like buy a house at this current economic state. And so we decided to kind of take a spin on real estate investments. And so it was right after the whole blockchain boom. We had just had a successful blockchain company in the cohort before us. So we're like, why don't we try this out? And I had kind of done a little bit of very small amount of blockchain engineering up till then. And so we created Turnkey, a tokenized real estate investment platform, pretty much changing the way you invest in real estate to make it a more liquid market through investment trading on the secondary markets. And it did not go anywhere past Lava Lab, but I do think in 10 years, when the world's ready for it, I'm going to bring it back up and I'm going to ask Nikhil to be a part of it because he loved it back then.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, Nikhil's a CS god.
I don't know about that.
No, he is. I tell people all the time, like, Nikhil's the most cracked dev I know.
Nah, you guys are too. Yashvi is a CS god, and so is Reagan.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think mine was less technical. It was, we were doing like essentially like a snack delivery platform. So we were all international students, the four of us. And so it was bringing Korean snacks, Indian snacks, Japanese snacks, just a bunch of imported snacks, and delivering them within like a 30-minute time frame. So something like double, but for international snacks specifically. And yeah, I mean, we prototyped the entire thing, but right when we started getting the more product testing phase is when COVID hit. So it was not the best time to do a product startup. So that one went down the drain, but it was fun.
Nice. And I hope it sounds like all of your experiences in these clubs seem super fun. And I hope whoever's listening will get inspired and hopefully join the startup community. And I want to thank all three of you for coming here today and talking with me about this.
Thank you for having us, Sydney.
Yes.
We love talking about Lava Lab.
And Troy Lab.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Sydney, thank you for another great episode. As I said at the beginning, this is like my favorite topic to talk about and to hear about. I think USC students are very passionate, and I really enjoyed listening to the people that you had on here.
Yeah, for
Sydney.
sure. Oh.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's really cool to see what other students are working on, and then like how you can take an idea and then just like build something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Sorry if you guys heard that. My dog just went nuts. So Sydney, when you were coming out of high school, what was something you were thinking about doing, and how has that altered or changed in relationship to this? Was this something that you wanted to do? My same question to you. Is this something that kind of came up over time? Walk me through your guys' journey as far as what it means to you to be involved in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so going from high school to college, I didn't really have any idea about like the startup industry or even like what entrepreneurship was. But then I did apply to Lava Lab, which is the entrepreneurship club we talked about. And it's very like, sorry, my brain froze for a minute. But
Okay.
No, you're good.
basically I did a project on like mental health, and this was during like the COVID era and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I got into it and how I wanted to help others through this tough time.
Very cool.
Yeah. And for me coming in, I think in high school and just where I was from, like entrepreneurship was typically considered just like owning a business, like not necessarily a tech product. But I think being at USC and at Viterbi like made me realize like it's not just like you're owning a business or like you open a store or a restaurant or something like that. It's like you can just build a product, and it can just be as simple as that. And it's just like something that you're doing and pursuing on your own. So yeah, it's been like a throughout college, I'm learning more about like what that entails and understanding that like I really think it is interesting to build something new. And
You
like
bet.
at its core, yeah, entrepreneurship is that, like building new things. So
Yeah, and I think to give a little reality check to most of the people that are out there listening, there are a lot of people that dream of creating their own startup, having their $1 billion idea, or think that some high school students think they already have it. And it's oftentimes that I have to tell students, like, the chances of that happening are pretty low, but sure, don't take the dreams away. But what I think what a lot of these students, both Maya, Sydney, and everybody on this particular episode are talking about is they're talking about a sense of education that is based on experience, and it's based on the ideas of creating new ideas. And that is a discipline in and of itself. And this doesn't necessarily mean that either of you are planning on your next step straight out of college to make a startup, but likely the skill set that you're developing is something that employers are looking for. And ultimately, those experiences and skill sets will develop at different employment agencies or not employment agencies, but different companies. And oftentimes that's where startups come out of. Like when people make like a space startup, they don't just do it straight out of college. They probably go work for a big company and then develop new ideas and then create that into a new one down the road. That's a far more likely pathway to go down the road. But it is a skill set. It's like a literacy. It's like an opportunity to learn something new. And maybe that it's not math, it's not reading, it's not science. It's something entirely different. And it's not necessarily that kind of buzzword ideation thing either. Like, oh, I know how to create cool ideas. It's actually the idea of curating ideas into formation of products or services, and knowing the math and science and technical background to make it happen, and the business acumen to make that work, which doesn't necessarily need business classes. I don't know. Does this register with either of you?
Yeah. In Lava Lab right now, we especially emphasize like it's not like you can learn how to ideate. You like train yourself to think in that way and to like be critical of like the status quo and think about like the possibility of creating new things. It's like a mindset to cultivate rather than a skill.
And I will always quote a venture capitalist who recruits a number of different people and funds different people from USC. He and I were having a conversation, and we were talking about this idea of business classes, business majors, engineering students, engineering majors, things like that. And he always said every single startup that is seeking funding typically has two types of people involved in it, if there's not two exact people. One of them is now I'm messing up my own story. I can't remember what it was, but basically one of them was like essentially the hustler, and one of them was the hype man. And he's like, I'll always take the hustler. Like, I need the person that's involved in the development of the technology, not the person that's out there just selling it. Like, I don't need someone to sell it. I need someone that knows the technology at its core, which is, I think, important to understand when you're dealing with any types of technology or services, that the engineering and the computer science or anything else behind it, the technology is usually the most important part of any of these types of ideas.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. And we'll be back next time with a whole other episode of Viterbi Voices. See you soon. The VC person said, just tack this on at the end. Just throw this on at the last second. Like we said goodbye and then you're back. Okay. So I just remember what it was. It is, the VC said there's always a hacker and a hustler. And I want the hacker, not the hustler. The hustler is the hype man. That's where the hype man came from. That type of salesperson is usually not important to that person that's providing funding, as important as the hacker, the one that's creating the technology. Sorry, that's it. Now goodbye. Have a good one.
Okay.